Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it was sent to me by one of our dear sister. Strange things do happen in this world. The message reads like this. Hello, my brother. How are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? I am a woman who is aged 40 years old, and I want to confess the things that I do, the things that this other traditional healer seduced me into doing. So I started dating these guys, especially what these young men that they call Ama2000. Those are the guys that I started to date. This was after I had gone to visit this other traditional healer. So what happened to me is that, as for my husband, after he passed away, since I was very young, then my husband's relatives, they started to mistreat me, and they treated me really bad because I had not given my husband a child when he was still alive. So they said that I was someone who could not conceive, and there was no need for me to keep on staying at my husband's place. So they took my husband's house by force, and they forced me to sign the papers. Since I didn't want a lot of problems, I then signed the documents and I handed over the house to my husband's younger brother, and he got married to his own wife, and they started to stay there. Life was very difficult, and because of the bitterness that I had, I then traveled to Mutare, where I heard that there were a lot of healers that could actually assist me. But unfortunately, when I arrived in Mutare, I was then robbed by this other man. This man, he lied to me that he was also a traditional healer. I just met him in town, and when I followed him to his house, and then he started to abuse me. This man, he abused me for 1 week, and after that he then kicked me out of his home. So I started to walk around the village, and I was just crying, and I was hungry. I didn't have any money to return back to Zim. And at that time, when I was walking around, I then sat by the river, because at that time I was actually thinking of committing suicide, telling myself that it is far much better that I just get into the water so that I can just drown in the water. But then they came, this other old woman. When this woman came, she saw that I was crying. She then came to the place where I was sitting, and she asked me why was I crying. Then I started to cry even more, for I told her my story, and she felt sorry for me, and she said, so when last did you eat? And I told her that this was now the second day, and I was feeling faint. I felt as if any time I was going to die. She said, do not worry, my daughter, for I want to assist you, even though I have never done this thing before. So I went with her to her house. Then when we were at her house, she then said, I am a witch. I have never confessed this to anyone, but I want to confess to you that I am a witch. I have bewitched a lot of people in this village, and when I saw you, the first thing that came into my mind was to kill you so that I can feed on your flesh. But after I heard your story, I want you to bewitch your relatives. I want you to bewitch your husband's relatives, and I am going to help you. And I then told this woman that I had no intentions whatsoever of bewitching my late husband's relatives, for they had done whatever that they wanted to do, and I didn't want to bewitch them. God was going to punish them. And she laughed at me, and she said, do you know why they say that God's answer, it is always slow? When you want God to answer you today, he is not going to answer you. It is because people saw that God is nothing but a slow God. She then said that she was going to introduce me to a God, another God that was going to assist me whenever I wanted assistance. That God was going to appear before me, and I was going to speak with this God one-on-one, not this God that hides himself in the clouds. This is the blasphemous things that I was told by that old woman. And whenever she would mention the name of God, she would keep on laughing and laughing, and the way that she would laugh, it was really scary. Anyway, I agreed, since this woman said, if you do not want me to help you to bewitch your late husband's relatives, then I can't help you. I wanted this woman to help me, so I gave her the go ahead. And she said, here, take this piece of paper. So I took that piece of paper, and I wrote the names of my late husband's relatives. After I had written them down, the ones that I wanted her to bewitch, she said, it is fine. She took that piece of paper and she placed it in a clay pot, and she closed that clay pot. Then she started to cook some food for me. Later on, Later on in the evening, she then said, I want you to accompany me. So we both went outside and we waited for the sun to go down. When the sun had gone down, then this woman, she took this other reed winnowing basket and she placed it on the ground and she said, let us get inside. When I got inside, to my surprise, it was as if we were on an aeroplane. I saw a lot of people and she said that I should not speak to any of these people because they were all witches like her and they had their own missions. So along the way, I actually saw that these witches, they have their own airports. There is another world out there that we do not even know that it exists. This aeroplane, it was actually picking and dropping witches along the way until we finally arrived in Harare. When we had arrived in Harare, we then got to the place where my husband's house was at, and I saw that my husband's relatives, they were actually there, and we then got into the rooms where they were sleeping one by one. So this woman, she then gave me a loaf of bread and she said, with this loaf of bread you are going to finish all of your late husband's relatives, so I want you to feed them, each and every person. I want you to She then said, for each and every person that is in this room, you are going to give 2 slices, because at that time, when we counted the people that were there were 8 in total. So I started with my late husband's younger brother. I gave him 2 slices of bread. I forced him until he had eaten those 2 slices of bread, and I went to his wife. I did the same to the kids until I had finished them all. After I had finished them all, then that lady said, it is time for them to drink from my powerful breast. It is time for them to drink my cursed milk. She then removed this other dress that she was wearing and she was like totally naked, and we walked again room by room. We started where I had started with my late husband's younger brother. She then pressed her breast into his mouth. Then he started to suckle on that witch's breast as if he was nothing but a newborn baby until he was done. We did these things until the morning came. When the morning came, we went outside. Then I saw that the same winnowing basket was waiting for us. When we got into that winnowing basket, it transformed itself and it became an aeroplane. Then we flew back to the village in Chipinge. When we had flown back to Chipinge, this lady said, wake up. And when I woke up, I saw that we were sleeping on top of a grave. When I woke up, I think that it was somewhere just after 4 a.m. That was when she said, let us go to my homestead. I see that you do not want to be a witch. As we were walking, she said, do not say anything. You will only speak with me when we are back indoors. When we went back into her kitchen, she said, tell me, child, why don't you want to become a witch? Because I see that in your spirit, there is a fighting spirit that is fighting with me. The things that I made you to do, you do not like them. I said, all that I want is to become rich. I do not want to be a witch, because if I become a witch, am I going to be rich? She then laughed at me and she said, no, being a witch is not about being rich. It is about enjoying bewitching other people. So I said, no, I would rather become rich at least for about 10 years, then I will die. She then said, oh, 10 years you want, so it is going to be so. She then told me that she was going to wait for this other man who was in Mozambique, and if he was going to come back, then we were going to speak with him, and I was going to be told if it was going to be possible for me to become rich or not. She says that the God of money does not give anyone his money, but he chooses you. So this God of money, we were going to have a consultation with him, and I was going to know my fate. When that man returned back from Mozambique, we then went into his consultation room. When we went into that consultation room, he then said, finally, I have found my mate. Finally, I have found the woman that I have been searching for all of my life. This man then told me that since he was a traditional healer, his gods did not allow him to become rich, but he had been given this task of finding a woman who was going to assist him, so that this woman will be the one that will be using his charms to become rich, because he was not allowed to use his own charms to become wealthy. So this man then said, are you willing to become my wife, but in the spirit? In life, in real life, we are never going to stay as husband husband and wife, but in the spiritual realm, you are going to become my wife until eternity. Then I agreed. So this man then told me that all that you have to do is that I want you to go around looking for these young boys, especially these ones that were born in the year 2000 and above, those ones that can at least make love to a woman for more than 30 minutes, those that are strong in bed. These are the boys that are required for these rituals. I was told that when I find such a young man, what I have to do is that I have to sleep with that young man, not using any protection. And so what I do is that after sleeping with this young man, I will get off from the bed. Then I will take this other small container that was given to me by the traditional healer. Then I will kneel down and place this container between my legs so that the semen can fall directly into that small container. And after that, I will travel and I will go to Chipinge and I will give to that traditional healer a way that these young boys die after sleeping with them for at least more than a year. They usually get involved in accidents or they can actually get murdered. This is the way that they die. So after I would have given the traditional healer their semen, then their souls will be stolen from them. This is my own confession. Yo, dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by our sister right there. Strange things do happen in this world. Yo.